Uh-oh.
In her last two fights. Good way hitting him from that way down.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Set to go down late next month.
On the 28th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Cohen Promotions.
The promotional company of Kaylee Reese and Brian Cohen. Kaylee Reese, the former champion. Brian Cohen, the former fighter turned promoter. They're going to be staging a show that it looks a lot like Liana Cruz is going to be headlining. Liana Cruz, a fighter that we've talked about in passing here on the channel several times. Philadelphia native, unbeaten up-and-comer that will be squaring off against the very seasoned Melis Gangloff of La France.
Scheduled for 8 rounds in the super flyweight division.
Super flyweight, that's where this past weekend's contest took place between Virginia Fuchs and Adelaida Ruiz. That's where this fight is taking place.
Where Irma Garcia of Mexico holds the IBF, Ashley Gonzalez, also of Mexico, she holds the WBC. Mizuki Hiruta of Japan, she's got the WBO, and Clara Lescurat, she's got the WBA.
Seems to be a lot of movement in today's super flyweight division where Liana Cruz will be doing battle with Melis Gangloff. Liana Cruz, 26 years old.
To Melis, who's 28.
Liana Cruz sports a professional record, an unblemished record of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, no recorded knockouts, but don't let that fool you. She can punch a bit, she can crack, she's got speed,
Some power.
and natural ability. Liana Cruz doesn't come from some deep amateur background. She really has no amateur history.
Pedigree.
Like what you see from Rhiannon Dixon up there at lightweight, or what you see from Bree Howling at bantamweight.
These are good fighters, very, very good fighters, talented, with natural ability, but no amateur history, no amateur pedigree.
None of that to draw from. What they're learning on the job. Facing Melis Gangloff of La France will be a learning experience. Melis Gangloff, who sports professional record of 10 wins with 4 losses, no draws, 3 knockouts. Having never been knocked out in 14 professional bouts, world traveled. A lot more world traveled than Liana Cruz, who I don't think has ever actually fought outside of the United States.
Melis is flying over.
Melis Gangloff, who's fought in her native France. She's fought in the United Kingdom.
Now she'll be fighting in the United States. Her last fight, that was in Italy.
The fight with Megan Alvard that Melis won by way of a 3rd round technical knockout. That was in April of this year. This will be her 2nd fight of this year. Her 2nd fight, and I believe her first here stateside, here in the United States against unbeaten up-and-comer Liana Cruz.
This is an acid test.
No bold presuppositions as to how Liana Cruz will fare against Melis Gangloff, because Melis is so much more experienced than she is. And what I've seen from Melis over the years, she's a tough nut to crack. She can be hard to handle. She was hard to handle for Ebony Bridges way back when, in 2021, when they fought. There were a lot of people that thought Melis should have won.
I remember that.
You want to pay attention to that. That Liana Cruz, like Ebony Bridges, who shared the ring with Melis, yeah, Ebony didn't come from some deep amateur background either.
Neither does Liana.
Liana Cruz, that was last in action in May of this year opposite the ring seasoned veteran Nancy Franco. They fought for 6 rounds and it was ruled a no contest, a no decision.
Nancy was pretty experienced too.
A veteran of 41 professional bouts, 41 professional contests, that even if Nancy went in with an upside-down record, she still has a lot more experience to draw from, or had more experience to draw from,
than young Liana. Something similar applies here with Melis Gangloff. She's more experienced than Liana too, so it's not a foregone conclusion that Liana wins. She may have home field advantage.
But Melis Gangloff has been in there with the likes of Ebony Bridges, Ellie Scottney.
Those are valuable experiences, and this is a fighter that is world travel.
We're just going to have to wait and see. Wait and see how Liana Cruz makes out. This is a step up in class for her. A better grade of fighter than any fighter that she's fought so far.
It's a good fight, and we'll talk more about it as the fight date approaches.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, His Excellency Mr. Turki Usyk has declared that he wants to lower the price point for pay-per-views to £20 in the UK and $20 worldwide, and said the Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol pay-per-view will be £15 in the UK, $15 worldwide on October 12th. People watch illegally because the price is high.
He's absolutely right.
This, in the future, will not build boxing. If I give good fights with a good price, it will increase the fan base, at least theoretically. The question has been asked. All those individuals that watch boxing content via illegal streams, if they did not have those illegal streams to resort to,
If you eliminate piracy,
will that result in more pay-per-views being bought, or is it that you can't necessarily lose what you never had? That the people pirating these pay-per-views never had any intention of paying for them anyway?
because they ain't got the money.
Because they just don't have the disposable income. What an American household is charged for a box office fight is far too expensive. This hopes to alleviate that burden, remedy that problem. You're talking about paying $80 at a time for a single show. What Turkey hopes to do is lower the price point to 4 times less.
From roughly $80 in America to 15 or 20.
This might see more individuals here in the United States that rely on illegal streams to watch box office fights actually buying them, because for a perspective, $15 to $20, you spend more than that on Chinese food.
You spend more than that on a bucket of chicken at KFC.
At $15 to $20, you won't have to wrestle with laggy streams and sketchy websites anymore.
Trojan worms, malware.
You won't have to run those risks to watch boxing content, box office fights anymore if it's just $15 to $20. That's affordable to everybody. Boxing, at its base, is a poor man's sport, and in a very general sense, sports in general are for the common man. They're not intended to be luxury items, exclusive to just a few, the top 2%.
Sports are at their best and sports are at their biggest when they're accessible to that many more people. And that hasn't been the case with boxing for some years now, inundating the market with pay-per-views in the hopes to satisfy the financial demands of the fighters, which we've often talked about.
And up until this point, resorting to pay-per-view, putting fights behind a paywall to satisfy the financial demands of the fighters and their teams, while simultaneously hoping that a lot of people buy them, has proved more and more difficult as more time has progressed. Only Turkey, the Saudis, and their resources can make both happen at this point, satisfying the financial demands of the fighters to actually get them to fight, while billing a pay-per-view at an affordable price point.
An affordable price.
Some may be left to wonder, how are they supposed to turn over a profit from a price point like that? Well, it's often been said that the Saudis are not in boxing or in sports to turn over a profit.
It's part of a bigger endeavor, part of a bigger picture. This provides perspective.
They're clearly not motivated by greed. If they're lowering the price point of a pay-per-view down to $15 to $20 from $80,
They're not looking to bilk the fans, milk the boxing community at large, bleed them dry if they're lowering the price point.
I'd wager that Turkey and his people pay attention. They pay attention to what people are saying and what they have been saying, what they complain about, that the market is inundated, oversaturated with too many box office fights, and you can only ask the boxing fans to go into their wallets, but so many times in a single calendar year. Everything the PBC is doing, everything on Prime is a pay-per-view. Tack on yours,
And it's too expensive.
the effect that this has had over time is a shrinking market that leads to shrinking interest in boxing because it's tucked away behind a paywall.
Paywalls.
He has to have noticed that boxing is nowhere near as big now in America as it was in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s.
Even if there are other emerging markets, flourishing markets like the British market, the Japanese market, or the Australian market, in America, what used to be the mecca of boxing, the market is shrinking. Why?
It's too expensive. There are more and more paywalls going up to watch a card, more and more paywalls to watch boxing, and it's starting to seem like it's more trouble than it's worth.
He has to have noticed. I think Turkey and his people, I think they're paying attention. Close attention.
Just the other day in several videos, we talked about how the undercard for Better B versus B-Vol is being billed as a pay-per-view.
And how it may not be a good idea to bill that as a pay-per-view in America, since it's mostly an international card with international fighters. There's not enough meat on that bone. Not enough that somebody's gonna want to pay $80 to see it. But now,
this is a game changer. This is welcome news and perhaps what the market needed.
pay-per-view's 4 times less than what it usually costs.
So because it's more affordable now to that many more people, perhaps more people will buy the pay-per-views. Thus, you can attract that many more people to boxing. More people will watch it, talk about it, and the sport will grow. This is an effort to stimulate its economy.
The competition.
This really only pertains to Riyadh season shows, Riyadh season cards. Via PBC on Prime, they're still going to charge you what they normally charge you, but it will become that much harder to do that when you have a cheaper, much cheaper alternative.
It's difficult enough to sell a show that costs people $80, let alone doing that several times a year. Tack on this latest development that there's a cheaper, much cheaper alternative that still features world-class fighters, world-class fights, some of which were very difficult to make in the past.
At only $15 to $20, where the competition wants you to pay $80, 4 times as much.
That makes their job a lot harder.
Not the only major change that Turkey plans on implementing, His Excellency has confirmed that he does have plans to create a boxing league in the future. He said he also believes there are currently a crazy number of world champions in the sport with 4 belts in each weight class.
He wants consolidation. He wants the champions to fight the champions, the same as the fans do.
The real boxing fans and not the narrative pushers and content creators that have learned to turn over a profit from propagating those narratives. What Turkey wants is for boxing to go back to being about boxing and go back to being more of a sport.
Don't worry about the business. Leave that to them.
That's what often dominates the conversation in this postmodern era of boxing. Not the boxing, not the actual boxing and fighting and sporting element of it, the business aspect of it.
And those who profiteer from its continued division, a fragmented sport,
In some ways broken to the point where it doesn't really resemble a sport. It's just a lot of greedy guys trying to make off like bandits. Though how would a league remedy that problem? How could that fix that situation? And the hope is that because they're charging less than everybody else, while still putting together the fights you want to see, they can run the competition out.
you're either gonna get down or lay down.
It's not a secret by now that in the American market, Turki El Sheikh's presence in the sport has been met with some resistance, some who don't like him and what he's trying to do. But what is he trying to do except make the fights people have been asking for and make the sport more affordable?
While still providing the fighters with career-high purses.
Boxing by itself, left to its own devices, could not do this. And what fighters don't want to participate in Riyadh season, participate in these big shows? Oh, you can go over there and fight on somebody else's card that costs $80 that a lot of people aren't going to buy, thus a lot of people aren't going to watch, unless we're talking about illegal streams.
They can watch them that way, but you guys don't make no money from that.
No profit, no money. And before you know it, if you want to make serious money, you're going to have to take on serious challenges.
Serious fighters.
The other issue in boxing that requires a remedy, the lack of ambition from some teams and some fighters who simultaneously ask for the moon and the stars to do what they're supposed to do.
You can fight in Riyadh season, where they will separate the contenders from the pretenders. That's what we've been seeing. That's what happened when Jared Anderson fought Martin Bakoli. That's what happened when Wilder fought Joseph Parker and Zile Zhang.
These kinds of fighters, if you can fight at Riyadh season, one of these shows, and you win, there's more in it for you. But if you lose,
You get that reality check.
it's necessary. Consider it a purge. It's what it resembles. This is prize fighting after all. And there are big prizes, very big prizes at Riyadh season.
But if you don't want to get down with this, if you don't want to do it, if you just want to be matched soft, playing it safe,
Good luck making money doing that. And just in keeping with the theme of all things Turki El Sheikh, His Excellency has made it clear he wants to make Fury versus Joshua next if AJ beats Daniel Dubois later on this month. He said he will make an offer for Fury versus AJ regardless of whether Fury wins or loses the Usyk rematch and would want to make the all-British clash before either man gets a shot at a trilogy fight with Usyk.
He wants what he wants.
I don't think that Fury losing to Alexander Usyk necessarily has to be the end of Tyson Fury. It wasn't the end for Anthony Joshua. He lost 2 fights to that same fighter, but here today, he's ranked number 2 in the world of the top-earning boxers in the sport. His marquee value has not left him.
He's coming off a string of victories.
2 of which were the 2 guys that gave Tyson Fury all that he could handle. His knockout win over Otto Wallin and his last fight with Francis Ngannou.
Knocked him out too.
This is the same guy that lost 2 fights to Alexander Usyk. So when I look over at Fury, entertaining the idea that he loses the rematch,
It doesn't have to be the end.
though it might be, because Tyson Fury is not mentally as strong as he's made out to be.
So many people talk about how he rebuilt himself, reinvented himself after the Klitschko fight, forgetting why he left in the first place.
They always leave that part of the story out to make it a shining testament to Tyson Fury's mental strength, his resolve.
Forgetting why he left in the first place.
He willfully gave up all the titles he won from Vladimir and absconded. While being under investigation by UCAD for testing positive for nandrolone, it seems to me that the real reason Tyson Fury left the sport for 2 years and became morbidly obese in the process was to avoid getting suspended. By UCAD and by the BBBOC for testing positive for a banned substance. They can't suspend you if you're not fighting, if you're not active.
Was he down in the dumps? Was he depressed?
Maybe. Was he stuffing his face and becoming morbidly obese in the process? Yeah, sure. But if you were to make a biopic about the life and times of Tyson Fury and his triumphant return to the sport of boxing, what are you going to do? You're going to leave that part out?
So that it could seem like a feel-good story and so that Tyson Fury could seem mentally strong.
Look at how mentally strong he is, his mental fortitude, rebuilding himself after everything he went through. What did he go through? He tested positive for PEDs, then he disappeared.
That's it.
I've never considered him the mental health hero that so many others do, some who fell for it.
His gift of gab behind that charming English accent that so many Americans cannot distinguish between a prince and a pauper.
That they thought he was the king. It's his mental fortitude that has my attention more than the marquee value of a Joshua fight. That if he loses to Usyk for a second time, that doesn't have to be the end of Fury, but it could be, because mentally, I don't know if he can handle it.
He couldn't handle the scrutiny from the BBBOC years ago. How do you really think he's handling this loss years later? We don't hear as much from him. From him, his father.
The fact that I am very thankful for that Tyson Fury, Blowhard Fury, he's not as talkative these days on the heels of this loss to Alexander Usyk. What would another loss do to him? Oh, you can do the fight.
But is he up for it?
I've always favored Anthony to win that fight. Before he lost to Usyk and after.
Because I think Anthony's mentally stronger than he's given credit for, and Fury is a lot weaker.
Weaker than people realize, weaker than people care to acknowledge. People inside of boxing, people outside of boxing. They look at him through rose-tinted lenses at what they want him to be.
Not what he is.
So if he loses, Turki can still try to do the fight, but I think it's safe to say that if he loses, this fight won't be now what it was.